2022. More on that in a moment. But today, former Fort Lauderdale Police Chief Larry Scirotto is fighting back and fighting for his job. The city fired the chief over allegations that he discriminated against white men in promotions and hirings. We discussed this morning with Perry Busby of the Westside Gazette in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But first, let's bring Perry on to discuss some of the other headlines to start your day. Good morning, Perry Busby.
Good morning, Stacy. Glad to join you this day.
It's good to have you, Perry. And we start this morning. A Washington jury on Tuesday found Guy Wesley Reffitt guilty on all 5 counts related to his role in the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol, verdicts that could land him in prison for decades. The jury reached this decision in less than 4 hours after being sent the case. The guilty verdicts are a major victory for the federal prosecutors who tried Reffitt, the first of what's expected to be more than 700 defendants. Perry, we all know what happened on January 6th. And these verdicts are likely to influence how other defendants may seek to handle their own cases going forward. You know, Reffitt, he's 49 years old. The government said that he was a part of a militia from Texas, Perry, and prosecutors said that not only did he go into the Capitol armed with a handgun and wearing body armor and carrying flex cuffs, he sought to disrupt the certification of course, the 2020 presidential election. He also, when he got back to Texas, here's the interesting thing. He was also charged with this. When he got back to Texas, he threatened his own children not to turn on him. Mm-hmm. That became a federal charge as well, and he was convicted of. He faces 60 years. That's a message, isn't it?
That truly is a message. And one of the state's witnesses was Reffitt's own son.
Yes. Exactly, and that's and so his son and daughter both were victims. They were considered victims because he threatened both of them. So, you know, as they move forward with these January 6th trials, now we're getting to the meat of it. They're going to be jury trials, and now perhaps after Reffitt, maybe many others will say, you know what, let me plea bargain.
And key to Reffitt's judgment yesterday here in Florida, Enrique Tessio from the Proud Boys was arrested by FBI agents. So we are seeing some movement, and we're hopeful, which is good because on light of that, last week it was announced that Florida was number 2 in terms of states with white nationalists having a stronghold here, or their headquarters were based here. So Florida now is second to California in terms of white nationalists.
Perry, y'all got some problems down here in Florida, don't
you? Go ahead.
Also in the news this morning, Perry, in HBO's new series, The Gilded Age, a frequently glossed over aspect of Black history is put in the spotlight. Textbooks documenting this time in history would have you believe that the era's rapid economic and social growth can be credited solely to the likes of Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and Cornelius Vanderbilt. In truth, people of color also made significant contributions to the American economy of the 19th century and its vast accumulation of wealth. Check your local listings to see The Gilded Age on HBO to find out more. This is really interesting that they're now bringing this with all of the critical race theories. They are bringing this to national television about how African Americans really contributed, and not just contributed, but they were a major part of America's wealth, and even in the 19th century.
Yes, and you know, with all that has been said about, you know, slave narrative movies, this has been a welcome departure. I was talking with my granddaughter about Elizabeth Keckley, who I learned about. I think that's, again, those are some of the great stories that I hope that we can bring to the forefront of slavery.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting that so much of the history they want to kind of say it never happened. You know,
right.
Come on, if you're going to tell the story, you you can't tell the American story without the African American story. The African American story is American history. And so this is going to be interesting. The Gilded Cage is going to be really interesting. As noted, we are live at the Players Championship in Ponte Vedra, Florida. And I'll never get used to saying that, Perry. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And we got to visit with several youths from the PGA Tour's First Tee program. 4 of them were given the opportunity to personally design putting holes that was unveiled inside a Morgan Stanley's Eagles for Impact tent at TPC Sawgrass. We spoke to high school seniors Manny Nagu and Alanis Santiago Maldonado. Here's what they had to say, Perry.
Hi, I'm Manny Ngu. I am 18 years old and I go to Stanford College for Apprentice.
Hi, my name is Alanis Santiago Maldonado. I go to Yuling High and I'm a senior.
Fantastic. So I noticed the courses that you guys designed. First, well, tell us about why that particular design.
So at first when our coach Ron, he told us about the opportunity, my mom told me to get an idea of things that we could possibly do, so I started sketching. I like art and I plan to major in graphic design in college. So I started sketching out things I like and in colors that I like, and then I also got to collaborate with Alanis.
Yeah, so Coach gave us the whole design. It was obviously part 3. It was pretty straight away. So we tried to think of things that we could put as obstacles because it was straight away holes. So we had to make it a makeable part 3, but then it had to be hard. So from there, from her sketches, she got the lovely banana in the back, which is it's a big thing for her. We thought about where to put it and stuff, but we ended up putting it behind the pin, so it wouldn't really get into anything. We have medals in the front, and I think the inspiration was that just golf tournaments, you get medals at our age. So for us, we thought it would be cute to have that incorporate that. And then we like to add color, which are also designs that we sketched out.
Wow, and the thing about it, is that the Players Championship here, what's going on here is not just about the game itself, right? There's so much going on outside. Like you saw the young ladies there, young women of color exploring the game and really putting in time with the game and realizing that there are other things that they can do around the game. And also, we met with some students from HBCUs that are here. This is quite. They're really pushing diversity here at the PGA Tour. And we are right here. The Black Press is right here to bring it to you. We'll have more from the Players Championship, including, and this is extremely special because not all media gets invited to this. In fact, most media don't get invited to this. They usually have a pool reporter. But tonight, we're going to be in the clubhouse tonight for the Golf Hall of Fame induction ceremony with Tiger Woods gets inducted tonight. Let it be known, has received rare access, and we will have more for you on Tiger Woods' induction into the World Golf Hall of Fame that happens tonight. So stay tuned tomorrow. We got some great stuff all week at the Players Championship. It's it's a great feeling to see our young ones, and then you see the trailblazer like Tiger Woods really take over this game. It's amazing to watch, Perry.
It truly is, and even more remarkable is that the NNPA is there to catalog this from our perspective. And so congratulations to Dr. Chavez and the president and you for bringing a level of excellence to this, because as you say, everyone isn't invited.
Right. Well, and to go along with that, as we look forward in the week on Saturday, Dr. Chavez, in fact, will be here. He has a meeting with Commissioner Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner. So this is, and we'll have also an exclusive interview with the commissioner as well. So this is going to be, a fabulous week again. As you said, for NNPA, it's really monumental.
And to bring some normalcy to Florida, finally.
Well, that's a tough task, bringing normalcy to Florida. And before we get to the main topic, what else is going on down in Fort Lauderdale?
You know, D.L. Hughley said, if you want to start a good joke, begin with in Florida. Uh, uh, but yesterday we had a election, which was the third in a series of elections following the death of the late Congressman Alcee Hastings, and so we had a state Senate race. And the turnout for that was less than 9%. And that Senate district race is primarily a minority district, which begs to answer what are the prospects for 2022 moving forward into the midterm elections?
Right, right. Wow. So you mentioned too, former President Obama will be down there. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yes, this Saturday, the Broward Democrats will hold a major fundraiser, and the keynote speaker for that is former President Obama, which I'm sure will generate a big turnout. I looked at the flyer, and the flyer reeked of the Democrats' legacy. In addition to President Obama, there in the corner was FDR. So, so that sort of tells you where the Democrats feel like they're at, and how they're going to connect. I think is still the mystery, even if you book in FDR and Obama.
Well, we will be watching even from afar. You'll be watching up close, and I'm sure you'll bring us what actually happens down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But also in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, of course, the city has fired its police chief, Larry Scirotto, over allegations that he discriminated against white men in promotions and hirings. They said following a thorough and extensive investigation of employee complaints at the Fort Lauderdale Police Department, City Manager Chris Lagerblum has determined that it is in the city's best interest to separate employment with Larry Scirotto. What's happening there, Perry? Because you read it one way, but when you really peer into it, they're saying he's hiring too many black people, he's hiring too many Latino people.
This is a loaded story. I mean, considering Fort Lauderdale and Broward's law enforcement history, we can go back as far as 1935 and the lynching of Reuben Stacy by the sheriff's brother, who was a deputy at that time. But Chief Scirotto was. I find these allegations funny because they hired him primarily for his diversity experience. Chief Scirotto came from Pittsburgh, which is not a bastion for diversity in itself, but he had a stellar record, and I find it funny also that Chief Scirotto had 6 months, and if you look at Miami, who also a few months ago fired its police chief using some similar language, but so it looks like the blue line is really a struggle here.
Yeah, so they say they hire him for diversity. They want diversity, and then he brings diversity. They say, no, we don't want that. I don't understand that. So you're there, you're reporting on that. You kind of you ascertain the mindset. What's the mindset in Fort Lauderdale about this situation? You mentioned Miami is the same way.
Yeah, we've talked to a few sources, and if you look at the report, and Chief Scirotto alluded to it in his interview yesterday, that it really does offer vague language. What initiated this was Chief Scirotto came in and promoted 15 officers, 9 white, 6 minority. There were 4 individuals, 3 white men, and 1 white woman who filed a complaint, And based on their complaints, Chief Scirotto says that those 15, if they had followed that design, would have ended up with 12 white men, 1 white woman, and 2 minorities.
Wow. So he's he's being punished for doing the job they hired him to do.
Exactly. And again, let's remember that when Chief Scirotto came in, Fort Lauderdale Police Department was in the midst of a public relations and turmoil and issues created to issues related to the George Floyd protest here. There was the incident where a police officer struck a young woman who was kneeling. They fired pepper spray and rubber bullets into a peaceful protest. So when he came, there was turmoil. And his approach was to create a liaison community with those communities that were that didn't have a voice. And chief among those things was a offhand comment that seems to have been made into a public statement regarding a wall of police officers that was predominantly white. And the chief said that wall is too white.
Okay, so and your view and your reporting, chief, the chief, where did he go wrong exactly? I mean, are we right just to say that he went wrong simply by hiring minorities?
Well, no. In fact, if you look at the report, there are some in the report, and those are words from the report itself. It says some, which is very vague determination. But they said some agreed they did not like his approach because they thought it would undermine the people that he promoted credibility.
So what do you mean approach? Tell me about his approach. What do they mean by they didn't like his approach? If he got the job done, it's like, you know what, instead of, Main Street is 2 blocks over to your left, but I decided, let me just go around this way to my right and then eventually wind up on Main Street. I'm on Main Street, right? It shouldn't matter. Tell me about this approach thing.
Well, again, according to sources, the idea is that if the chief had simply implemented without making a public statement of his intentions, maybe this outcome could have been avoided. But to me, that sounds like an internal way of saying if he had just complied.
So really, I'm hearing in my head, Michael Jackson's "You Can't Win" from The Wiz. He couldn't win.
You can't win. And again, we see the same approach in law enforcement in regards to how Republicans are now lining up against Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Jackson.
Yeah, and she was confirmed 3 times already
Right.
for her other appointment, including last June. And the Republicans were in on that confirmation. So now they don't want to. They want to come up with this idea or problems with her all of a sudden, 6 months basically, or 8 months later, after they've already confirmed her to another seat. So it's really a bit showing a hypocritical side there, right?
Exactly. In fact, I'm waiting for that group from Arizona to check her diploma to see if it's fake. See if it's really made of lambskin. I don't know the way they're going.
Well, yeah, see where she was really born, right?
Right.
So Perry, how do you see that unfolding? You mentioned before we get back to Chief Scirotto, we're on Judge Ketanji Jackson Brown. Right. How do you see that playing out?
I'm very hopeful. Miss Jackson Brown has a stellar resume. I've listened to those who knew her here in Miami because she is from Miami. And without any reproach, everyone has nothing but wonderful things to say. And I think this will, if she doesn't, I think it is another stake in the ground for where we are headed in this polarization of our culture. But I truly hope that she gets the nomination, and hopefully her supporters will stand up like the people in Ukraine for her.
Wow. Perry's making statements today with punctuation marks. So Perry, on this, going back to Chief Scirotto, so he's continuing to fight his termination. How do you see that going? And what's, I know Bobby's watching. I know you can't necessarily speak for Bobby, but what's the Westside Gazette's that you know of anyway? What's the position of the Westside Gazette on this matter?
Well, we fully support Chief Scirotto. In addition to him being biracial, another aspect to this is that Chief Scirotto is openly gay. So we also, without saying, have that undercurrent as well. I do hope that the community understands what is happening, because a lot of this is really being played out behind the scenes and people are getting snippets. And with the current relationship with community and the police, if they bring someone in, it's still going to be status quo.
Yeah, and what about the NAACP, or not necessarily just them, but local leaders there, local activists? What are they saying? What are they doing?
Okay, now this is Perry and not Bobby speaking. But our local leaders, personally, I feel as though they have not stood as a bunker against a lot that has happened, and much of that has to do that our elected leaders are not meeting and developing a strategy, even from our perspective. And I think that that's a big issue. Again, the late Congressman Alcee Hastings started a group called the Broward Black Elected Officials. Since Congressman Hastings passed, that group has yet to meet.
Wow, so it's sort of like the Congressional Black Caucus, right?
Yes.
Is that? I mean, as far as
yes.
the group, and again, I want to go back to the activists, right? What about the activists? Are you saying that they're not necessarily getting involved in this issue? I'm trying to understand where they stand.
From an activist standpoint, I have not heard any activists speaking out on this issue. Again, I think in terms of some of our younger activists, they're very issue-oriented. And so putting this into their orb, I think, is the next step, because they, again, in terms of what's happening in terms of surveillance, and the number of incidents that we are now hearing about young men being accosted in their neighborhood with no record of the stop or anything, there's a lot going on that we need to approach.
Well, a couple of things. Bobby Henry is saying, he says, no, Perry, you do not speak for me. However, I totally agree with what you're saying. Two things, Perry, is reverse discrimination a new thing?
No. and again, we're looking at another attack on one of our established acts. I mean, we're looking at equal opportunity now being dismantled, or affirmative action being dismantled, along with voting rights. So there are a lot of integral pieces of policy that we are allowing to be dismantled. And I think we really need to focus on these key policy issues.
So we talked about the activists, we talked about the elected officials, we talked about the Westside Gazette, but what are the people doing? a lot of times we get the protests, people in the streets. Are you seeing any of that? Any organizing?
Uh, no, and I think COVID has played some role in that. I think what we're seeing from the community is really a fatigue and some idea of where can I find a respite just before I get back in the fight. And unfortunately, with COVID, with what's happening on a global scale, food prices, gas prices, when you start looking at these important issues, such as law enforcement, for some reason, it tends to take a back seat to those immediate needs, and that's very unfortunate.
Well, Perry, Florida, of course, is going to be a major player in the upcoming elections. We got the midterms only in a few months, and you know how time flies, right? In the blink of an eye, we'll be at the midterms. Talk about that, Perry, and where things stand, because Val Demings is running for a major seat, and you got you have Marco Rubio, of course, he's up. So tell us about what's going on with that. Are you feeling any momentum at all?
From a statewide position, no. I think that what we have now is a lack of charisma at the top of the ticket. I think Val will do a great job in that. What will be key is how much emphasis they give to the governor's race with DeSantis, and between and the Democrats on that side is Charlie Crist and Agricultural Commissioner Nikki Fried. So with that being at the top of the ticket, with the governor's race at the top of the ticket, it's going to be interesting to see, because I'm not sure if Congressman Crist or Agricultural Commissioner Fried will be able to turn out the Black community.
And real quick, as we wind down here, Al McFarland of Inside News out in Minneapolis, he's asking a great question. How do the demographics of the Fort Lauderdale Police Department align with the city demographics? Is there equity? Is there parity?
No, and that's what Chief Scirotto was attempting to rectify. He was attempting to bring the police department more in line with the different demographics of the community it supported, both in terms of African American participation and women participation.
Wow. Well, I'm sure Perry Busby of the Westside Gazette, you and of course the Westside Gazette as a whole will keep us informed on this issue and other issues, because as we mentioned, you got the midterm elections, and Florida always seems to be right there in the mix with everything. Right. So please come back, keep us posted. We love your shirt. If you just show us a little bit more of that shirt. Yeah, that's a really nice shirt.
Give some Bobby Henry. I can't say he didn't give me anything.
Well, we know Bobby Henry is good for 2 or 3 things at a time. So
right.
It's always great to have you, Perry. It's always great when the Westside Gazette is represented. You guys do a great job out there. And of course, join us tomorrow. We will have a whole lot more from here. We'll have other great topics that you don't want to miss to start your day every day with Let It Be Known. Tonight, of course, is the induction ceremony here at the Players with Tiger Woods, and the Black Press of America, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, is invited. We will be front and center with the great Tiger Woods. And it is the 195th year of the Black Press of America. A whole lot is going to be going on this year. The front office has a lot planned for us, a lot of surprises, I'm sure. We're looking forward to that as well. So thanks again for joining us, and we will definitely see you tomorrow.